Hello, my esteemed colleagues, and welcome to a cup of tea and a slice of game. So today we are starting a brand new series, brand new challenge for this channel, and we are going to attempt to play through a Dungeons and Dragons game with a fully randomized party. And when I say fully randomized, I do mean completely random. So if you know your D&D, this will make sense to you already, but if not, don't worry, I will go through it, but we're going to be randomizing our races, our classes, our stats, our abilities, even the personalities of the characters in our party. Okay, so we might end up with a wizard who is incredibly buff but incredibly stupid and doesn't know how to cast spells. We might end up with a old frail barbarian. We might have a team of all rogues or all fighters or all dwarves or something. We will see what happens. So how is this actually going to work? Well, as you might have guessed from the logo beneath, we're going to be playing Solasta, Crown of the Magister. So again, if you know your D&D, this is a 5th edition game, and this is one of those games that's trying to recreate the actual tabletop experience digitally, so you can sort of play through a little bit like an RPG, but all the mechanics and things like that are based off Dungeons and Dragons. So I have tested the game first couple of hours with a normal, not completely messed up party, and had an absolute blast with it. So I thought it'd be good to try this challenge, see where it goes. We'll see what absolute chaos is created. So if you are interested and you want to have a go at this challenge, or just to play the game normally, do see the links in the description below, where I have links and places you can pick up Solasta yourself. Okay? So, as this is the first episode, we're going to be setting up our grand party of potentially completely useless heroes. So, the Solasta campaign, it starts you with a party of 4, and they are all going to be level 1. Okay, so we are going to roll for 4 sort of starting characters, and there's going to be a lot of rolls, an awful lot of rolls. So what do we need to roll for? What is getting randomized? Let's start from the top. So race, there are 6 playable races in Solasta. Okay, so you've got humans, dwarves, elves, half-elves, half-orcs, and halflings. Okay, so little gnome-like people. Okay, and there are a bunch of sub-race options, as there are a couple of different kinds of half-elf and dwarf, things like that. So we might need to roll for those sub-races as well, depending on what we get. Gender. Okay, so there is the option of male or female in this game. It does affect some character interactions you can have and some voice options, so we're going to roll for that as well. Classes. Okay, so standard 5th edition D&D has 12 base classes, 13 with the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything expansion. Okay, Solasta has slightly shrunk it down to 9. Okay, so we're only missing bards, monks, and warlocks. Okay, from the sort of base 5th edition, and yeah, there are no artificers from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything either. Okay. There is barbarians and druids they added as part of DLC, so I picked that up just to make sure so we had as many possible classes as possible. Okay, so once we've rolled for the class, there are also a bunch of subclass options as well, including some that aren't actually from the sort of 5th edition books, just to kind of try and create some more variety from sort of the actual gameplay in the way that Solasta works. So we'll have to roll for that after we've got our main class as well. So lots of rolls there. Backgrounds. Okay, so backgrounds, they work a little bit different to 5th edition, because they don't just give you a couple of skills and sort of some ideas about your character. They kind of determine your character's personality in cutscenes and how they interact with other characters and obviously your party. Okay, so there are 9 in total, and that includes there was 1 extra added with the DLC as well. But there are also then, once you've picked that, various personality options, whether they're sort of good, slightly more chaotic, your standard kind of D&D personality fare. Okay, so there's a lot of roles in the background section. Stats. Okay, so stats. In the tabletop version, you can roll for stats anyway. but depending on the version, they can be a little bit more generous. That is not how we're doing it. We are simply going to roll just for each stat. So our strength, dexterity, constitution, wisdom, intelligence, and charisma. And then whatever we get, that is what our score is going to be locked in as. Okay, so this could be the disaster section. Next up, skills and languages. So depending on our class or background options, we may have sort of only a couple of choices, maybe sort of more like 6 or 7 sort of skills and languages that we can actually choose from. They determine sort of what our characters can do, obviously with languages, but also what they might be good at in terms of, are they stealthy, are they athletic, are they potentially just completely useless at everything. That is what's going to be determined there. Finally, but last but not least, I guess, name and appearance. Okay, so we're going to use a random name generator, okay, and we're going to generate some names and some kind of ideas about what these characters are and look like. We'll also be rolling for things like how old they are and whether they're sort of completely built up and bulky, or whether they're sort of, well, again, a complete mess. We'll have to see what they look like at the end. Okay, so once we've rolled all of that, not just once, but for each of our 4 characters, we will have our complete party. Okay, whatever sorry messes they end up being, we'll have to see. So, I think, without further ado, let's boot up Solasta and let's get rolling. Okay, so welcome back to Solasta. So, I have already gone and I've clicked on Solasta, create new character. And you can see the first thing it asks us to do is pick our race. So, what I'm doing for this is I have the app on my phone called RPG Simple Dice. I'll put a link to it in the description. And I'm assigning things sort of a numerical value to sort of roll for. So, for example, if I roll a 1, I will pick Hill Dwarf. If I roll a 2, it'll be Half Elf, 3 Half Orc, 4 Human. And I'll do that for each sort of different section. Okay, so without further ado, let's roll for our first character's race. And if I hit D6, we are going to pick Halfling, because we rolled a 6 on the app. So, Halfling is one of those interesting races where we actually get 2 different options. So we can be a Marsh Halfling or a Island Halfling. They have, I think, some ever so slightly different bonuses. One has a buff to Con, one has a buff to Charisma. And they get, one gets rope dancing, so some acrobatic buffs, and then, yeah, the marsh ones get swamp, which sounds completely useless, so that's probably the one we're going to get. So for this one, I'm just going to simply flip a coin, and no, actually this time, we're not going to get the marsh halfling, we're going to be an island halfling, which I think is a little bit better. So they move a little bit slower, do halflings, because they're a bit shorter, but you can see they do have a kind of a bunch of different buffs and bonuses, so they're not just, you know, slow. It's not the only thing they have. I'm also just going to flip a coin quickly just to see if we're going to be playing a fella or a lady. And we are going to be playing a lady halfling. Okay, a tiny little pirate lady halfling. So, next up, really, really important, the class. You can see the ones with the symbols on, they weren't in the original game. So the druid and the barbarian, they were added from the DLC. And I think it was Path of the Wild? Not sure what it's called. And then Sorcerer, that was actually just a free update they added in the Sorcerer class. Don't know why they picked Sorcerer of the ones that were missing. Not one of my favourites. So naturally we're going to probably get 4 Sorcerers. But I'm going to roll a 9-sided dice, because this app does let you pick custom sided dice, and see which class we get. So I've rolled a 4, which is going to give us Fighter. So a tiny little fighter. Now, I should point out, we do have a buff to Dex. You can play dexterity-based fighters, so maybe using a bow or something ranged. It's not the worst thing in the world. Okay, so you can see some of the buffs and bonuses they get there. And you can also have a look at the equipment they get. You can mess with it. I'm going to just leave the equipment as a sort of a default. Just because otherwise it's more rolls than my brain could possibly comprehend. And we're not going to roll for this yet, but at level 3 we get to pick a subclass. Now these don't look like standard 5th edition subclasses. Champion is one. I definitely remember the improved critical Getting a crit on a 19 or a 20. It's not a popular one. These two, we'll have to see when we get there. Because next thing is background. Okay, so backgrounds. Backgrounds are the personalities. Okay, so again, we've got 9 to choose from. So it's whether were they, stuck in a library? Were they sort of part of the nobility? Were they a spy? Did they just roam around in the wilds? This will determine how they act in certain social situations. Okay, and I haven't played this game enough yet to sort of know how impactful it is, but it definitely makes some sort of difference. So our halfling fighter will be an academic. Rolled a 1. So that gives them proficiencies in Arcana, Nature, and Insight. So not skills I'd necessarily expect for a fighter. And yeah, you have some sort of buff to a faction in game, which is cool. There is a faction system, I remember that. Haven't really explored that too much yet, but I do know there is one. Get some languages. And enchanters, we can enchant items. Okay, the academic background isn't really meant for fighters, but you can mix and match whatever you want. So, now going to roll for the personality. So I'm going to roll a d4, see which 2 we get. So first of all, we're going to be lawful. Okay, so sort of that stoic, soldier, sort of esque personality. Rolled a 2 again. And the next one, ooh, it's not particularly good. Greed. So we have a slight greedy streak to us with this halfling, okay? And then the next 2, so those are 2 specific to your background. I'm then going to roll a d10 to choose from these additional personality flags, okay? The first one, I roll a 6. So altruistic would be 1, kindness 2, 3, 4, 5. Authority is our 6th one. So that, actually, we're sort of building a character that's starting to make at least some form of sense. Okay? Maybe the academic part doesn't particularly make that much sense, but they're lawful, they're authority, but that leads into a sense of greed. I like it. It's starting to make sense. Now, I just rolled a 9, which gives us greed for a second time. Now, you can't pick the same one twice from the same section. However, if your background personality flag comes up as greedy, and your additional personality comes up as greedy, you get essentially extra greed. If you look down in the bottom left, each of these traits are given a personality score. And that's sort of determined by the kind of colour they are. So formal, that's a personality score of 30. That means that we're insanely formal. I think that's the highest I've ever seen a single personality trait. Greed, though, that's still crazy high, 18. We're very, very greedy. Whereas authority being 13, casual being 8. It's weird that we're casual and formal. That doesn't really work, but that's kind of fitting with this challenge. So you can start to see how these personalities are actually getting formed. So, ability scores. These are the stats that we have been given. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll to start with a d6 to determine where this first sort of 16 here is going to land. A 1 means I put it in strength, a 2 means in dex, and for each one I'll lower the sort of number that I'm rolling, obviously, because there'll be less slots. So, our first stat, and by the way, just before I get distracted, what a nice set of rolls. This character's going to be good. They are going to have a 16 in dexterity, which is incredible, because also that gets buffed by the +2 to bring it to 18. That's a +4. That is probably the highest really you could have on a level 1 character. And we were talking about making a dex fighter anyway. What a great start. Okay, our next 16, that is going to go into charisma. Okay, we are very charismatic. That is, for a fighter, completely useless in every way, but it could work in some social situations. So, our 14 is going to land us in wisdom. Okay, so that we don't have any buffs to wisdom, it's just a flat +2. Wisdom is quite a nice stat because it leads into perception, which is one of my favourite skills in the game. The ability to spot things, very, very important. Okay, so now we are going on to our slightly weaker ones. We are going to get this first 12, and that's going to go into intelligence. Okay, So intelligence is a lot of your sort of history, arcana, thinking about magic, a lot of knowledge kind of roles. Okay, so unfortunately, these last two are probably the top two you'd want as a fighter. Obviously, because we've got Dex, we're probably going to go for Dex rather than Strength. But I would like that 12 in Constitution if we can, and that is where it's going to land. So that gives us a +1 that's going to give us some extra health. That's pretty important. And we do just have a +0 in Strength. Okay, that, however, far, far better than I was expecting. The 17 in Charisma is a little bit annoying because that is useless to us. But everything else, it's pretty good. Now, here we have our fighting style. Okay, so we could go for, there's two different things we can go for. I say that like we're going to pick. We're not picking. We're going to roll. So if we get one that isn't Dex based, I'm going to absolutely hate it. I'm going to roll a d6, cross my fingers. We get a 2. Now that isn't actually bad. While you were wearing armour, you gain a +1 bonus to AC. I was thinking defence was... it's actually none of these. I thought it was going to be shield based, and I don't think necessarily we're going to have a shield. So that's actually not too bad. It's not ideal, but hey ho, I'll take what I can at this point. Skills. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 possible skills at the moment that are classed as class skills. We're going to roll a 7-sided dice and see which 2 it's going to give us to pick. First of all, we roll a 6, so that is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We now have an extra +2 in survival. What that actually does is it adds your proficiency bonus. As you can see just underneath our character sheet, character stats there. That increases as you level up. But at level 1, it's just a +2 bonus. Our next one we get is a 4, which is going to go to animal... Ooh, that took me away from that. Animal handling. Which I didn't notice. It actually tells you is completely useless for this campaign. But hey ho, that's what we got. There's quite a few actually that aren't even used. I did not clock that. Sleight of hand isn't used. Performance and animal handling. Eesh. Right, next we have the languages. So again, this little eye symbol, I knew about these, didn't know that there were some skills that were useless. These just tell you that those languages aren't actually going to come up. They've still put them in there so that there is custom content for this game. You could implement it that way. But we get to pick 1 language from our ancestry and 2 backgrounds. So we're actually going to pick quite a few. But originally, we're just going to have to roll 4. This, and we're going to get a 4, which is 1, 2, 3. That's Giant, which again is one of those completely useless ones. And then we're going to get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, that is Ultimarian. That is an actual useful one. And then Terran, which is useless. So we got 1 that's good. The rest, complete waste of time. Lovely. Finally, this last step, this is where I'm going to randomise their sort of name by using the fantasy name generator. I'll put a link in the description as well. I'm going to randomise their face, their skin tone. I'll keep the skin tones within kind of what's acceptable for their races. Otherwise, everyone's going to just be a complete brightly coloured mess. Obviously, if you have an orc, they're going to range from kind of different sort of greens, and the elves can have a slightly wider variety of sort of purples, sort of lighter purples, and sort of within the regular skin tones. But body decorations, the colours of them, the scars, the hair colours, the eye colours, the age. Most other races, apparently not halflings, also have a physique stat. So I'll roll a percentile dice. 100% gives you the buffest character in the world, 50 slightly built, and 0% would obviously be thin as a rake. But halflings don't get that. There's also random voice and pronouns. I won't go through all of these with you, otherwise we'll be here all day. You will just get to see the finished product, and you get to meet our new character like this. Okay, you can now meet Ferus Mildbarrel, one of the most kind of traditional halfling names, so I'm told. So this is the appearance that was generated. You can see the face paint and the scarring, and her terrifying black eyes that rolled a 1 on a D32. It does look somewhat terrifying with that. Perfectly middle-aged. She sounds like this.
This has to be a secret passage.
I know, lovely. But yeah, that is our first character done and dusted. Let's move on slightly quicker. As I've sort of explained how things work, let's go on to character 2. Okay, so moving nice and swiftly on, let's create our second character. So I'm going to roll for the race once more. I get a 3. So we are getting a half-orc, one of those new races that were added in the DLC. I was hoping to get one of these. They have some really interesting sort of abilities, especially relentless endurance. Love to see it. So let's just see if we are going to have a female or a male joining us on our adventure. We are going to have a female half-orc. Okay. So yeah, we don't have a sub-race on this one, so we can jump straight in and pick a class. Oh, you love to see it. Rolling a 1. We are getting a half-orc barbarian. It doesn't get much more perfect than that. That is a match made in heaven. Okay, strength and constitution, you're already getting a couple of +2 and a +1 there. That is what you like to see. Okay, so some great stuff for the barbarian. There's also a lot less that can go wrong, so we're not having to roll for any spells. We just hopefully need to get them with a good strength and a good constitution. So let's see about backgrounds. Let's see what they are. We have rolled a 4. They're going to be a lawkeeper. That works fairly well, considering the sort of class and everything. They are quite sort of strong and, well, oppressive, potentially. Anyway, let's see what traits we get. We get a 4, which gives us pragmatism. So, okay, valuing practicality, that kind of moral flexibility. Willing to make the hard choices. I like that in a lawkeeper. And then we're going to pick violence. I mean, that works for the barbarian. I'll give him that. Okay, let's see. What else are we going to get with our random ones? We're going to get a 4, which is going to give us... Okay, we're doubling down on that pragmatism. Okay, so extra pragmatic. And then we get an 8. That gets us egotism. Okay, it gives us an egotism personality score of 10. So we're a little bit egotistical. We are fairly violent and pretty pragmatic. Okay. So, that's potentially worrying. It's not the worst it could have been. If we got violence again, I would have been slightly concerned. Okay, now, here we have our rolls. These rolls are garbage. Absolute garbage. Because we could potentially roll a 6 for our strength, and then this character is done for. But first, we're going to roll for that 17. I'm going to roll a d6 and pray for a 1. It's not. It's a 2. So we have +3 dexterity. See, I can take... if a 12 ends up in strength, I'm fine, because that will still give us a 14, which is +2. We'll survive. So let's do it. Nope. That first one is going into charisma, the most useless one. And then our next one is going into intelligence. Now I'm getting scared. I'm getting very, very scared. This 11 is going into wisdom. It's happening, isn't it? It's happening. Our 9 is going into constitution. It's happened. We have minus strength as a barbarian. It's the only one I didn't want. What are the options of that? We're going to have a high armor class, which is going to be nice. And our health isn't too bad. But, oh, those rolls are terrible. I'm scared now. So, skill proficiencies. We've only got 4 to choose from as a barbarian. And we are going to get athletics, followed by survival as our 2 class skills. Okay, and background languages, we only get the 1, and I don't think it's that important. We do get Dwarvish, though, which is actually used in the campaign, and I don't think we'd picked it up yet, so I'm actually okay with that. Right, so let's do the finishing touch, and once again, I will do some name generation and some randomizing, and you will see your beautifully created barbarian in 3, 2, 1, and we're done. Meet Borba, the pathetically weak barbarian. I'm worried about Borba and her ability to survive this world, but hey ho, we'll see how it goes. On to the next one. Moving swiftly on. Character number 3. What race are we going to get? We're going to get a 3. It's another half-orc. Is it going to be a male or a female? It's going to be another female. Have we got a party of 3 females so far? I think so. Yes. Right. Well, let's see. What class are we going to get? Can it be any worse than Borba was? Okay, we have rolled a 2, which gives us none other than the cleric. Now, I'm very happy with this, because clerics need strength and constitution. Works very nicely for the half-orc. The only thing they also are going to need is wisdom? It is wisdom. I have now checked. But the main thing is clerics are great healers. Clerics and paladins. But clerics focus more on the spell side. Paladins are slightly more on the melee side. So hopefully we'll be able to create something quite good. We also have to pick a deity. And then get loads of choices underneath. These affect your spells. They affect some bonuses that you get with your, I think it's divine affinity? Divine something that you get as a cleric. So first of all, we're going to pick between Aaron, Einar, Marake, and Pakri by having a little roll of our dice here. And then once we've picked that one, we'll be able to pick the sub one. So first of all, we are going to be a cleric of Arun. So these look like damaging kind of ones. So I'm looking at Burning Hands, Thunderwave. But what element will we get? We roll a 1, so we're going to be fire. Weirdly, despite being fire, the first spell you get is Thunderwave, which is lightning. Which makes no sense to me in any way. But we also get Firebolt as a cantrip. Now that is nice. That is one of the strongest damage dealing cantrips. It's a 1d10 damage. Very happy with that. Very happy. So, background. Let's have a look. What are we going to get? We are going to get an aristocrat. Very interesting. An aristocratic half-orc cleric. Yeah, very interesting. So we have some proficiencies there and a couple of extra languages. Let's see what personality traits we get. Authority. Works quite well in the aristocratic kind of thing. And lawfulness. So, potentially our aristocrat's going to get on with our lawkeeper. I would hope. Anyway, but let's see what else they have. They are going to be doubling down on that lawfulness. However, they're also going to be just a little bit cautious. That is not a dreadful mix. That's actually a fairly decent personality. An odd one for a half-orc cleric, potentially, but it's fine. It's within normal levels. I can give them that. Those stats are incredible. Weird odd numbers, but still, we don't have a 6, so anything works. So this first one, the highest one, where's that going to go? It's going to go straight into Constitution. Looks like we've got a tank on our hands, so I'm absolutely fine with that. Then we're going to take our 15, we're going to bomb that in Intelligence. That's awful, but hey-ho. Our 15, that's going to slot straight into Charisma. So these aren't really the ones I actually particularly want at all, which is annoying, considering Constitution I wanted. But again, I'm trying to get Strength and Wisdom. I'm just avoiding them. I've just realised it doesn't matter what I roll, because these are all the same stats, so they can slot in like that. That is a much more sort of well-rounded character. I'm much happier with that one. Okay, skills, we only actually have an option of 3. We're going to have to pick 2 of them. So we're going to pick Religion for our first one, and then we're going to get Insight for our second one. And languages, again, let's have a quick look. We're going to get Dwarvish, which I think we already have, actually. But that's okay. And then we're picking up the completely useless Terran. So, spells. Now, We've already got Firebolt. That's been given to us. That's very nice. And then we have 7. Right here. We get to pick 3 of them. Just pray that they're actually good. Our first one is Sparkle. So target up to 3 objects that can be illuminated and light them up immediately. That's not as bad as you might think, because darkness and light plays a big part of this game, and you struggle to hit enemies that are in the darkness, so that could actually be useful. Then we get Spare the Dying. I'm not sure if permadeath is a thing. I don't actually think it is in this game, but still, that could actually be really good. And then we get yeah, Shine. We get Shine. Yeah, we have 2 light-based ones. It's alright because we have Firebolt, so I can live with that. Okay, and then once again, we are going to pick what our lovely half-orc cleric is going to look like. So I'll be back in 3, 2, 1. Meet Shadback. Shadback has an amazing emo fringe, and looks like she's seen, well, some sort of horrible flashback. So, we have 2 half-orcs and a halfling. Let's see what our final character is going to be. Okay, our last one. Are we going to have a second halfling? Are we going to have a third half-orc? Let's find out. I'm going to roll the dice. We are going to get another half-orc. Wow, we are just going full on for the half-orcs. Let's find out. Is it going to be a man or a woman? We have our first male on the team. Welcome. So, class-wise, let's see what we get. We roll. Interesting. It's a wizard. Personally, I actually think this is quite a good balance of classes. It's actually working quite well. However, this all depends on how good this rolls. Because, yeah, a +2 strength and +1 con wizard, not a good start. Background, let's have a look. We're going to be an acolyte. So that's kind of the more religious one, kind of more for paladins and clerics, generally. But let's see what traits we end up with from it. Cautious, I can deal with that. And finally, violent. An interesting mix. Let's see, that is going to then be mixed up with egotistical and kind. He seems confused, to say the least. Okay, so ability scores. That is a probably subpar array. It's not the worst in the world, but there's nothing particularly special. Let's just hope that we get things in intelligence, which is going to be our sort of key stat. And our first roll is going to be Constitution. Okay, so we're going to have a +3 to Constitution, which is not the worst thing. I'd take that. I do want either the 14 really has got to be intelligence. And we get Wisdom. Mostly useless. And now we're just going to pray for one of these 12s. Let's see where it goes. Thank God. Okay, we've actually finally got one of the ones we really sort of wanted. Now these, not too bothered now. Okay, interesting. We're going to end up with 14 strength, which is very odd. And then the 11's going to slot into Dex. The 9 going in Charisma. I'm perfectly happy with the -1 to Charisma. That's probably what I would have chosen. Anyway, not that I have chosen this way around. Only a +1 to intelligence isn't great, but we'll make do. So, we've got a couple of class skills, so let's roll the dice. We are going to pick Medicine, and then with our last one we are going to pick History, a history buff over here. And then we got these languages. Let's see which one we get. We're going to end up with 1, 2, 3. We're going to get Giant. So again, lovely and useless. Loads of spells, 15 to be exact. And we are going to pick 3 of them. Let's actually hope they're good. The first one we are going to get is Ray of Frost. So a ranged hit. It's not the most ranged. What does that actually do? 1d8 damage and lowers movement speed. I'll take that. It's not the worst one. Our next one we're going to get is Chill Touch. So that prevents healing. 1d8, can I get hit points? So it's kind of a similar one. It's more ranged though, so it's not the worst thing in the world. Okay, and let's go for it one last time. And we are going to get Shocking Grasp. Oh, that's annoyingly sort of taking me away from that. Shocking Grasp is a melee cantrip, so if someone's close to you, you don't get a penalty for casting it, which is actually really, really nice. It's not the best array, but it's by no means the worst. I'll take that. That's alright. So now we have 20 spells. Let's see which ones we get. The first one we are going to pick up is Fog Cloud. So generates a sphere of thick fog. Creatures inside it cannot attack. That's probably more useful in a game setting rather than an actual tabletop D&D setting, to be honest. So I'm okay with that one, really. Let's see then what else we get. Our next one, False Life. So that gives us a few temporary hit points. Not what I would have chosen, but I do occasionally actually pick that when I play a wizard. I'm currently playing wizard in a D&D campaign right now, and I do have False Life, so I'll take it. Next we have Grease. So it might knock people over. It's not the worst thing in the world. We're then going to get Identify. That's quite a good utility spell and might actually be very useful in this game, but it hasn't come up yet for me. We're then going to get Hideous Laughter. So they have to save or they become incapacitated. Interesting. Okay, the one I really, really want is Mage Armor, but I don't think I'm going to get it. You do have the ability, at least as a wizard, to actually read books and learn spells that way. So we might actually be able to get more what we want. But our last one, anyway, is 17. Oh, Protection versus Evil and Good. I think that's completely useless. Excellent. Right, so our third half-orc wizard. Let's see what we're going to get in 3, 2, 1. And with that, please meet Hocknook. Slightly ginger, completely buff wizard rolling an 100 on the physique table. So he is absolutely strong as bricks. So that is our 4 characters. Let's see what they look like together. So here we have Ferris, Borba, Shadback and Hocknook. Our very, very odd party of 3 gigantic, bulky half-orcs, and then a halfling about this big. So a fighter, a barbarian, a cleric, and a wizard. It's a weird combo, but it's not the worst. The main thing that was terrible was Borba's terrible, terrible strength. Everything else, it's actually okay. But we'll see how they fare next time as we randomise some Dungeons & Dragons in Solasta, Crown of the Magister. So thank you so much for watching. Please do like, comment and subscribe, all that good stuff on YouTube. But until next time, thank you very much for watching.